Welcome, Karen, to Connecting the Dots. We are so excited to have you today. For listeners who don't know, I met Karen when I started going to acupuncture, and she was my acupuncturist probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And then afterwards, we just became really close friends. And I always joke that she's probably one of the best friends I made in New York. And she's been such an integral part of my healing journeys. I'm so excited to have her on. She has so much knowledge to share. So I'm sure the listeners will get all the juicy nuggets from you. So to start off, we always ask our guests an icebreaker question. So what is something that you're reading, watching, or listening to?
Right now, I'm actually doing an audiobook, which I really like. It's a lot easier to do audiobooks nowadays than read. I'm reading something called the Food, Women, and Hormones. So basically, it's a book that I've been enjoying audio-wise and looking into finding out how women that are going through premenopause and menopause are having issues losing weight, including myself, especially after this whole pandemic and having more stress and all. That little 5 to 10 extra pounds are not coming off that easy. So I've been wanting to research how is that linked with hormones and stress and weight gain. So that's one of the books that I'm reading. I'm also reading another book listening to a book that I'm actually reading is called The Sophia Code. And that's a very interesting book. That's more of a spiritual book. It's a connection with all of the divine goddesses and how to connect with them via activations through certain codes. That one is a really interesting one to get into that I've really been enjoying. So those are the top two that I'm doing right now.
Cool. I don't know if Melissa told you anything about me, but I am just starting my career as a nutritionist. And my number one question that I've been getting is, what are you going to specialize in? What's going to be your specialty, your niche? And I really love women's health, but I've been so focused on like fertility and women closer to my age, or even like growing up, like puberty. But something that I've been like so interested in learning more about is perimenopause and menopause, because that's the next step in my journey eventually. And if that's, if women's health is something I want to specialize in, then I need to become an expert in that pretty soon. And so I just wrote that down. I'm excited to check that out and learn more about that. So thanks for sharing that resource. And would love to get to know you a little bit better. So would love if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your health journey and how that led you to where you are today.
Sure. So I've been an acupuncturist now, so I'm a licensed acupuncturist, certified Chinese herbalist. I also have done Reiki Level 2, and I'm actually doing my master training in Reiki, finally, after like 10 years. Very happy about that part. I also work with Amazonian medicine, such as Kambo, which is a medicine that comes from a frog. Can discuss that later. What got me into acupuncture actually about 20 years ago, I was finishing up, actually had just finished up respiratory therapy school because that was my first profession. I was looking for work and trying to figure out like how to get that started. And I happened to sprain my ankle for the third time in my life. And I already knew how it was going to be. The drill is, rest, ice, compress, elevate, right? Which means I'd be out of commission for a week. And I was not looking forward to that. And I already knew it was a deal. Like, put my foot on the couch, crawl to the bathroom. It's like very uncomfortable. At that time, my mother told me about acupuncture. She said, "Oh, I have a friend that's visiting from Colombia. He's an acupuncturist. He's going to come and do a home visit." I was like, "Well, I don't think that's really going to work, Mom, because those things don't work." As I was very Western minded at that moment. And, she said, "I'll pay for it." I said, "Okay, I'll try it." So he came over, interesting looking man, comes in lab coat, just starts doing acupuncture on me. And to be honest, I felt immediate relief. I felt like the pressure in my ankle from the swelling was being reduced. And so I started asking all these questions. I was just super really interested. I was like, "Wow, this is magic." I was like, "I want to learn this." So he left a bunch of literature for me to read during that time. And I read it up, while he was like needling me and asking more questions. And the next day, I was able to get up and walk. So to me, that was like, okay, this is something really interesting. What is this about? As I researched more and so on, I ended up going back to school like right after. And then, 17 years later, here I am, loving what I do and really still being interested in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. I learned traditional Chinese medicine. There's so much more to learn that I feel like with my profession, it's endless the things. I'm still learning at this point still. So I feel like I really enjoyed that part of it. You can treat anything from A to Z, which I really, really love.
We talked about this on our interview with Dr. Bradley Campbell, but that is what I love about being in the health field too, is that there's always something new to learn. There's always something to be doing, growing your skills. It's a never ending journey, which I think is really cool. Some people might think that that's like daunting, but I find it pretty exciting. And last season, I had the opportunity to have an acupuncturist on out of Philadelphia. And so she gave a very basic overview of what acupuncture is and what a typical appointment looks like, from consultation to follow-up visits and all of that. But we really did not touch on traditional Chinese medicine very much and how acupuncture fits into traditional Chinese medicine. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and how acupuncture fits in and is a form of TCM.
Sure. So traditional Chinese medicine basically is acupuncture, Chinese herbology, and other modalities like cupping, sliding cup. There's other forms too. There's like, Tuina, which is a form of massage. It's all basically one whole thing, as I would say. And then, there's variations of it as well. There's like Korean acupuncture, it works more like on the hand. There's Japanese acupuncture, which is a lighter technique. Chinese acupuncture can be a little bit more intense in a sense of they want to really want you to feel more of what's going on as far as with the needle. Like you want to get something what we call chi. So in order to understand that, so chi is basically your life force. Chi is what gets us going through our body. I see it as like an electrical impulse that happens through our body. Our mind has a thought, then it sends the thought through the nervous system, and then it makes the muscle move. So basically, if you were to superimpose an image of the meridian system, which is all the channels and pathways of where chi flows through, you can superimpose it on the nervous system, and you would see that they actually overlap. So there are channels of acupuncture, which are called meridians, and nerves that are right underneath it. So when you were to needle an acupuncture point, you can actually go very, very close to the nerve, not going through it. And sometimes you will feel like not an electrical impulse, but you'll feel like a tingling going down the meridian. So that's what that part would be.
So,
Mhm.
oh, sorry. Continue.
That's okay, guys. I'm listening.
I mean, you started talking about meridians, which was going to be my next question anyway, because I find them so fascinating. But can you talk a
Sure.
little bit more about what they are for listeners who don't know and how it's used in acupuncture? Because I know that there are certain points on my hands that are relative to my feet or my stomach or like different organs. So, and I find that so fascinating how everything's connected. So,
Sure. So let's go basically. So there are 12 meridians in the body. Like I said, meridians are basically channels or highways of energy that are being conducted throughout the whole body. Where one begins, the second and third continue. So they basically connect throughout the whole system. So the first acupuncture meridian will actually it's going to be placed over here, and it's going to start with the lungs. So it will go basically all the way down our arm, and it will end at our finger, right? And then it could start again, and then I'll jump over to this finger and start going up. A lot of people know this point right here, this acupressure point, which is called large intestine 4. This point, a lot of people use for migraines, can be used for migraines, can be used like if you are having sluggish bowel movements. So when you press this point, the reason why it'll help your head is because the point goes all the way up your arm, goes all the way up to here, and it goes to the side and ends at your nose. So basically, any part like problems that you have here in your face or all, that point will actually help because the meridian travels through that point. The reason why it helps intestinally is because it goes all the way down and connects right here to the stomach channel. Then the stomach channel continues to go all the way down. So because of the connection with those 2 points, with those two meridians, actually pressing this point will help those two. So that's why it's actually really interesting to, when you have time, to actually Google the meridian system and actually see how the meridians go all throughout the body. Then you can explain why certain points on, you know, on the hands that you come, you know, actually massage will help other areas of the body. So that's the way that they're linked together.
It's so cool. And actually, I suffer from premenstrual headaches the day before my period. And so that was a tip that my acupuncturist gave me, is just like massaging that point for however long it takes. Sometimes if I'm like catching it early and I, you know, like when I'm like, oh, I'm feeling it coming on, and I'll just do it for a few minutes, it'll work. Sometimes I have to like continuously push on that point for what feels like forever, but it's insane how it's immediate relief as while I'm pressing on it. And sometimes it'll take longer, like I'll have to keep doing it until it actually goes away. But while I'm pressing on it, immediate relief. And I was like, that is crazy. Or there's a point on my back where they had me when I'm feeling like low energy, like tapping a little. It's just so cool how once you understand the points, you can utilize them in day-to-day life.
Yes, that's true. It's also like the reason why a lot of people can do, it's very like, it's very in right now, actually putting some ear beads or ear seeds on the outside of the ear. So if you were to look at the ear, the anatomy of it, like where my earring is here would be the eye, and then on the end parts would be like the organs. So you can actually get ear beads or seeds and you put them on different parts of your ear. And depending on what you need, it'll actually activate, like, you know, to calm you, or to stop some pain, or to stop with like anxiety or insomnia. So all of that is because there are acupuncture points on the ear, and it actually applies acupressure on the actual points because there's all those nerve endings. So it's really cool. If you look at, actually, if you look at, you know, if you look at it, if you had like a little brother or if you have kids, you'll see that when they want to soothe themselves, they really play with their ears a lot. So they're actually soothing themselves by pressing acupuncture points. So that's pretty fascinating. Yes, we have all this knowledge when we're born. So it's super cool.
Wow, that is fascinating. Yeah, I remember
Yes, it is.
when you put ear beads on me, it was like almost this like grounding feeling having them on. And it was like, it was helping with stress and my back and everything. And I also have, I don't know how much truth there is to this, but the Daith or Doth, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, piercing. And a lot of people say that people who have migraines usually get that piercing to help with it because where it's located is an acupressure point.
That is true, actually. And that's one of the reasons that it does work, for sure.
Pretty cool. I didn't really have migraines before, and so I can't be a good teller of if that actually works. But hopefully. My next question though is if you could talk about like what kind of like issues or health concerns that acupuncture helps heal, because I initially, just kind of telling listeners a little bit about my story with acupuncture, is I started going because I found out that it helps with allergies, and very few things actually help with allergies. But what I started learning was that it's not just allergies, it was the gut. And like my first session, when they put needles in, we call them the whiskers, the little whiskers on my nose, like my nasal pathways immediately opened. And I remember feeling like my stomach, like in my gut, like things were moving around. So I was like, okay, this must be working. And then even learning how it helped with my back, and I have a ton of back problems with producing inflammation, and getting into like the deep muscles, it was just like one of those things, like almost like a cure-all, like a one-stop shop, which was pretty amazing because I feel like a lot of different healing modalities are usually focused on one thing or another, and acupuncture is so good at being a holistic approach. So you can talk a little bit about some of the things that it helps with.
Sure. What I love about acupuncture is that it's individual treatment for different people. So, like, say, for example, one person comes in with a reason for having a headache. It can be caused, hormones, stress. It can be caused by many different things. So, you customize the treatment according to what is their pattern diagnosis. And then from there, you're able to treat what they need. So, everyone's an individual one, and everyone has different side effects from different things. I treat a lot nowadays in New York City. I treat a lot of course, anxiety, stress, insomnia, and digestive issues. It seems to be the most thing, and the next few things will be pretty much neck and lower back and other sorts of pain. I think I think the best one to do would be discussing like anxiety. So a lot of a lot of the times we have to think about where does anxiety come from. Sometimes we will feel anxiety physically, like we'll feel like palpitations or chest tightness, or we'll feel like kind of like that vibrating, frazzled energy. Sometimes anxiety can manifest as more just like overthinking, and it's what I call when you get stuck in the loop of thinking of overthinking, and you can't get out of it. Sometimes we have both. So the way that acupuncture helps in that sense is I believe in the connection with the mind and gut. So I say that the mind is like the logical mind and the gut is the emotional aspect of it. So if your digestion is not working appropriately, meaning that you get bloated often, you get tired after you eat, you're not having as many bowel movements as you should, which we all should be having about 2 a day. Um, that will create you to be foggy headed because everything's not working in the emotional mind, right? Which is the gut. That will actually affect the mind a lot. So if we have a happy gut, then we have a happy mind and a happy body. So is that connection with those two? Once we start treating, so for me, I always treat the digestion, and people are like, "But wait a minute, I'm coming in for anxiety. Why are you treating my digestion?" I was like, "Well, because if we treat the digestion, then we have a clear mind." So that's the connection between those two, and it actually will help a lot with stress as well. Other things that I do treat often now, as like we were seeing, is a lot of problems that are happening, post COVID. People are having like that lingering fatigue and insomnia. It's two things that I work with a lot as well. Insomnia can be either, like I said, it can be mostly not, having difficulty sleeping or not being able to, or waking up often throughout the night. That's something that I would work more with, like calming the heart with acupuncture. But I also like to work with providing someone to try some herbs as well. I feel like acupuncture is great and it does a lot of things, but mixing the Chinese herbology part of it really helps you to heal a lot faster in a sense. And it just kind of gives you some homework to do. Another way of taking care of your body at the same time. Like, I feel like it has to be like a 50-50 connection. I provide you the tools, you do the rest of the homework, and then that's how you get better. I think that that's also really important to also be able to understand how your body works, knowing what works better at that moment, and so on. And then when it comes to pain, like, I get a lot of people are working from home still, and we're basically working with like neck pain and lower back pain. That's a lot of trigger point when it comes to that, as Melissa knows very well. So I do a lot of trigger point when it comes to that part. And trigger point basically is, for example, like in the trap, your muscles will get super tight, and the muscles tend to like build up upon each other. And actually, with the trigger point, you go into the belly of the muscle. So let's say like the muscles are like stuck like this together. And when you put in a needle, basically the muscles start like opening up and detaching from each other, because most people will end up having a muscle spasm. So it doesn't matter how much you stretch and you get massages, it's very, very, very tough to get to like that deeper part, which is the fascia part, which is where the adhesions will mostly stay. So the acupuncture, the trigger point is the best part, the best way of getting rid of those. It is a little achy and uncomfortable. I don't know what other word to say, but that it feels weird. But once it's done, you're a little sore for like about a day or two. And then after that, you have complete like range of, mobility and movement. And you feel a lot, you feel really good. Actually, I've seen a lot of those muscle spasms in the neck and the traps create a lot of migraines and headaches. I've been able to help a lot of people by just releasing those points in those areas and then doing some cupping afterwards will help to manage the migraine and headaches, or just actually space them apart even more, where they'll actually will stop happening when it comes to if it's related to muscle tension. The cupping part's really cool. The cupping will actually help to, it's these little cups, and they're created with suction. And what it does is it helps to pull the muscles up in a way that it helps to pull up the fascia as well. And by doing that, it pulls it up and releases it slowly. So it helps to release any of the tension in the body. It can also be used as detoxification if it's placed on certain parts of the back that have to do with certain organs of the body. And you can see if you have a lot of stagnation, or if there's like injury in the muscle, you will see that the spots that are left after can be anywhere from like, a dark purplish color to like a very light mauve. They usually go away within the next few days. I'm sure everyone remembers Michael Phelps and all the spots that he had. That's actually created by cupping.
That is so cool. Cupping is something I know Melissa has gotten that done with you, but I've never gotten cupping done. But I've been working on detoxing for the last 4 years. And every time I hear someone talk about it, I'm like, I need to do that. That is something that I need to try and add to my detox toolkit. And something that you had said that I'm so interested in is that you are an herbalist, and how you pointed out how important it is to utilize herbs alongside of the acupuncture. And I'm just wondering, I know that your origin story was how acupuncture helped you with your injury. When in your journey did you realize how critical becoming an herbalist would be in your practice? And we'll start there.
Sure. So when I went to school, I went to Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, which is located here on the East Coast in New York. The program that was being offered was acupuncture and herbs together as a traditional Chinese medicine. At first, I was kind of like not knowing if I wanted to do the herbal part, but then I tried it anyway. And actually learning about herbs helped me understand a lot of the theory that goes on with acupuncture. So a lot of theory behind it. A lot of it is philosophical, which is beautiful, and a lot of it is just, for me, was learning a whole new way of looking at the body. Coming from a Western mind, I had to basically go into acupuncture school and start over, and just kind of just reset my mind to being like, okay, I'm going to learn things that may not be completely logical in my Western mind, but through time with theory and understanding, how herbs actually work, how an herb is not just a single herb, it has properties, it has functions, and when mixed with other herbs, you create a formula that actually is a beautiful tapestry. It's a beautiful way of being able to heal the person, again, customizing it to what the person needs, which I think is brilliant. I was able to study both. In my practice, usually I start just first with acupuncture, just to see if the acupuncture will help at that moment, and getting to know the patient more to see how they react to it as first. Like, are they healing faster with just the acupuncture? If I feel like it's an issue where there needs to be more added on, then I do add on Chinese, some Chinese herbal formula. I like to work more with patent formulas. It's just easier because they come in capsule form. Will be my first form of helping someone. If that doesn't work, and if it's something more serious, like more like, let's say, for example, someone that has more of like a weaker, I don't want to say weaker, but someone that needs more of a push to heal faster, then that's when I recommend the Chinese herbs in a raw formula, which means that you can either get these herbs all together, make the formula, and then you get them as raw ingredients, and you cook them up and you drink the tea. It's not the best tasting tea, sometimes, but things that don't taste good are good for us, as we already know. Or there's another way of getting them, where I have a colleague that I work with that I just send him the formula, and he makes it in his Chinese pharmacy. And he actually puts them in these plastic vacuum seal packets. So it's already made. So you just pour it into a cup, you warm it up, and you drink it about 2 to 3 times a day, depending, for about 1 to 2 weeks. Actually, that really helped me a lot when I had COVID some time ago. The fatigue was killing me. I wasn't able to get up. I was losing my hair, like just not feeling well. And he dropped off some herbs for me, and I took the raw formula. And within I took two rounds of it. So that means I took them for a month. I felt completely better than I did even before I had COVID. So Chinese herbs are beautiful and they're great. But the one thing that I do like to tell people is please don't buy things over the counter. Everyone likes to diagnose themselves and look at Google and then go on Amazon and buy a formula or buy something over the counter, and then not realizing that those formulas may not be adequate for them. So it's always best when you're going into Chinese herbology or any other herbs, if you're unaware, it's best to consult a Chinese herbalist or a Western herbalist to make sure that you're taking things that really work for you and that you're not over supplementing with other things, to make sure that you don't make yourself actually more sick or can actually damage your liver with time. So, these things are important. They're not FDA approved, or they're not necessarily FDA approved. They're not regulated. So just be careful when taking supplements, even like little things like magnesium or, everyone wants to try to just be an herbalist themselves. And, just be aware of that stuff. It's better to always consult a professional before taking any of these things, just to make sure that you're on the right, path.
Yeah, and I think that's very smart. Like the first experience I truly had with herbs was after going to acupuncture, and I got herbs to help with my allergies. And one of the herbs that I got, they said was like natural Claritin. And I've noticed now when my allergies get really bad, because I used to be a Zyrtec person, sometimes I'll take Zyrtec, doesn't do anything. I'll take the herbs, clears it up immediately. And it's just so fascinating to see how quickly something that natural can help me versus what we're told to help us. Curious if you could talk about some of the other things that you prescribe herbs for. Like I know you said it helps you for COVID, but I'm curious what else it could help with.
Sure. I work a lot with women's health. So I treat a lot of women that have come in with like severe cramps caused by either, could be either like from stagnation or it can be from endometriosis, which a lot of young women tend to have nowadays. There's this formula that I really like. It's called Cramp Bark Plus, and it comes from Health Concerns. And that formula, it's great because you only take it when you're actually having cramps. And that formula, any woman can use it with any type of cramps caused by any reason during their cycle. And what that formula does is they believe in Chinese medicine that when your uterus feels cold, so then this is why they say, this like goes back to like how our grandmas would tell us, don't walk around barefoot when you're on your moon cycle, and it's true. So you actually cold comes into the feet and goes into the uterus, or if you're sitting on something cold during that time can also cause some pain. So this formula, one of the things that it has is actually cinnamon. And cinnamon is known to be warming, and it actually warms the uterus to help with any pain like that. So that's one of the formulas that I really, really like that works well. I also work a lot with flower essences as well, which I really enjoy. Flower essences are great because it's a simpler way of treating someone, especially if they're on a lot of medication. So this is one thing you also have to look into before giving someone a Chinese herbal formula, making sure that what medication they're on, so make sure it doesn't counteract. But when it comes back to the Chinese herbs, yeah, definitely that's one that's good. I also like working a lot with like supplements. I think supplements are great. There's this one called like bromelain papain. So bromelain is made from pineapple and papain is made from papaya. And it's a supplement that's combined together that helps to reduce inflammation anywhere in the body. And you can take it. So it's like a 2-in-1. It also helps to reduce inflammation in the gut. So once again, by improving the gut health, you're able to reduce pain anywhere in the body. So that bromelain papain is one of the good things that you can use as well. And yeah, I think nowadays a lot of us have inflammation everywhere from head to toe.
Yep, I completely agree. And it's funny that you say that because in nutrition, we're always taught to look for the horses instead of the unicorns. And it seems to me that the horse is always inflammation. Where are the symptoms and the signs of inflammation, and what can we do? And I just love how much you've been stressing gut health, because it truly is. The more Melissa and I, interview people, so many people keep saying the gut, it goes back to the gut. And in nutrition, the first few questions that I ask any client is, how are your poops? What do they look like? Does it hurt? And, it's funny to me because growing up, I felt like talking about that was so taboo, not even allowed. No one discussed it. It was just something that you did in your private time, and that was it. And it's crazy now how much I talk about that.
It's true. It's all about the poop.
So I always appreciate when someone talks about gut health. Another part, though, that I thought was really interesting when you were talking about the gut was how it's the emotional mind. I've never heard anyone refer to that, but it makes so much sense because growing up, I always, when I was nervous or anxious, I couldn't eat. And it was like that stomach, mine wasn't like stomach pain, but it was just like you could feel it, like that pit in your stomach. I always had that. And, or when people say you got a gut feeling and your intuition's guiding you places. So I had a little bit of an aha moment when you're like, oh yeah, your gut's your emotional mind. I'm like, duh. So I was wondering how emotions play a role in the work that you do, because the gut is such an integral part of your job.
Sure. So when it comes to emotions, especially stress, I feel like nowadays stress is just the one that's really affecting everyone. Before it was like heart disease, a silent killer. Now it's stress. Stress really takes a toll on imbalancing your hormones, and by doing that, it just creates havoc in our body and will affect our digestion. So any sort of form of emotion that we feel, if we're too stressed out, most of the time we tend to get very tight in our body, and a lot of people will suffer from constipation when it comes to stress, when that will happen. And then mostly for some anxious people, when you're anxious, usually they will suffer from more of just like loose stool, which will then cause more fatigue. So it's really all related to all of that. And then you all sometimes can have the combination of both, where the stress and anxiety can cause IBS, as a lot of us will know. Acupuncture works really well with that because, first of all, we're able to reduce the stress by calming the mind, right? We're able to help with the digestion with acupuncture, we can help to either what we call like sedate or tonify. So, meaning if the person is like highly like strong, like stressed out, or the point where they're so actions like anxious, they can't sleep, they're frustrated, they're angry, we will calm them with some acupuncture points. It can be like anywhere in the ears or through like in the head, etc. And then by calming them, you will be able to have them not have such emotional outbursts. And by doing that, calming the system, you will help them sleep better. By sleeping better, you're able to like rejuvenate and replenish your body. And by putting them in a calming state, it allows the body to heal faster. So it's really, really nice when you see someone that comes in so overly like emotional or going through some stuff, and then just seeing them how they can leave afterwards, like nice and calm. Acupuncture gets you out of the loop. That's what I feel like a lot of, happens to a lot of us. We get stuck in this loop of like where the body reacts to stress the same way over and over and over. And you don't even realize it because you're stuck in that circle. So acupuncture helps you get rid of that loop. And usually, the first treatment, you'll feel some form of relaxation, but I always recommend one acupuncture treatment for 4 weeks, basically, because it takes 21 to 30 days to change a habit, right? I don't like to call it a bad habit or a good habit. It's just a habit. So within 21 to 30 days, which means one treatment, per week for 4 weeks, I'm able to get your mind to react different to stress. So by calming the mind, so remember, it's like the mind and body, it's like, one entity, but sometimes separate, right? So the mind will think that it's going to have to react the same way over and over. And the body tries to tell the mind, we don't have to react this way. So I'm tired. But once you calm the mind, the body's able to regenerate and like rest, and then they kind of sync together again. And then the mind is like, okay, I don't have to react to stress like this. We can just like chill out, get some acupuncture, do some breaths, take some herbs, and then it's okay. Oh, I don't have to react, like this. And then then it starts working as one unit, right? I think that that's the best way to like explain that part. So consistency is important.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with that 100%. Because even when I started going to acupuncture, I was like, if nothing else, this is a forced meditation for me. It's a forced hour where I'm separating from everything that is stressful. I'm laying on a table with needles in me that I can't move. So I'm just laying there and breathing, and I have to shut my mind off. And I've noticed that even just that, it definitely helps. But yeah, I know at the beginning of your sessions, you're like, do you want the sleepy treatment today? Like, always, yes, please. Um,
My acupuncturist goes, enjoy your nap.
oh yeah,
Exactly.
the acupuncture, the acu nap is the best.
Yes.
What was I gonna ask? So okay, yes, at the beginning of each treatment. Also, I did want to talk a little bit about the tongue because I find it so fascinating how you're always like,
Sure.
let me see your tongue, and you could just tell immediately what's going on with my body. So can you talk about how that is and what the tongue can tell us?
Sure. So basically, the tongue, it's separated into, it's a map for us. So the outer part of the tongue, which is like the tip of the tongue, is related to the heart. So when I talk to you about organs, it's not per se through Western medicine. It's organs as far as meridian system in acupuncture. So that's the difference between that. So if I say something is going on with your heart or liver, your heart and liver organ are fine. It's just energetically how we diagnose it in acupuncture. So at the tip of the tongue is what we will be the heart part. So if you're having some insomnia or you're not sleeping well, this is how I can always tell when my patient is not sleeping well, because I'll have them stick their tongue out so that I can see it. And if the tip of their tongue looks like a strawberry, then I'm like, okay, you're not sleeping well. And the reason why they say is the heart uh, energetically, right, has to do with keeping like the fire in our body, it has to do with the joy in our body. So whenever we become overwhelmed, that fire ignites too intensely and it disrupts us. So it'll give us anxiety, it'll give us palpitations, it won't let us go to sleep because we're overthinking. So what we do is we do points to calm the heart. By calming the heart and clearing the heat from the heart is the way that we're able to help you get to sleep deeper and help the anxiety and so on. So that's kind of the tip part. If you look on the sides of the tongue, that would be what we call the liver part. So sometimes you will see like a discoloration in it, or what we'll all probably see if we were to stick our tongue out and look at it later on is most of us might have what we call a scallop tongue, which is teeth marks. So the tongue actually is the first organ of digestion that we can visibly see. It's also a muscle. So when there is inflammation, going back to the gut, if there's inflammation in the gut, you will see that your tongue will swell up and it won't fit in your mouth. So it presses up against the teeth, creating teeth marks. And as you do acupuncture and take your herbs and change your diet and a lifestyle change, you will see that those markings on your tongue will go away within about a month or two, depending on how much you do your homework. But there is a way of correcting that. So the sides are what we call digestion. The tip is more like how you're sleeping, and the center part is like the main digestion part. So that's where like we'll see like the spleen and the stomach. So some people will have like a crack in the center of their tongue that can be caused by like poor digestion for several years. So we look at that. We look at markings on the tongue, depending on the markings, depending on what's going on. We also look at the color. So if your tongue is pale, in a sense where it looks a little bit more mauve color, it's because in women you can see what we would call blood deficiency. Doesn't mean that you don't have any blood, because you wouldn't be walking around. If it was that case, it would just mean that you can be, maybe like a bit anemic or borderline anemic or going towards anemia, which means that your blood is not as strong in the body. And it happens with women, when our moon cycle, we do shed some blood. So you can see the tongue change color in that sense. When the tongue is a little bit darker, in a sense, more like a dusky reddish color, that means that there's stagnation. That means that things are not moving. You can see that in a woman that has like severe, like, menstrual cramps, or if they have like endometriosis, or if there's you can see it in people that have had pain for a very long time. You can see that kind of color as well. So what a normal color would look like is if you ever look at your like doggy's tongue, or if you see like a little kid's tongue, it's kind of like that vibrant pink color like that. That's what a healthy tongue would look like, with like no markings or anything like that. So that's how we're able to diagnose. So what we do is we question the patient to see what's going on. We ask series of questions. Some of them sometimes don't make any sense, but they make sense to us. And then we have an idea of like what pattern they're in. Once we look at the tongue, it helps to confirm what we're already thinking. And we also feel the pulse. So the pulse is felt on both hands. It's both felt on both wrists. We're not feeling for beats per minute like we do in the Western world. What we're feeling for more is how the blood is flowing through every meridian. So it's divided 6 meridians on the right, 6 meridians on the left. On the right is what we consider more the yang part of ourself. So that means it's more like the outer meridians. And then on the left side is more the yin aspect of our body. So the yang is more like that robust, that movement, that change, and the left side is more of like slower, nourishing part of ourselves. So in Chinese medicine, it's all about balancing or finding harmony between the yin and the yang of our body. So we're never completely balanced, because a seesaw doesn't balance, right? Like if you remember playing in a seesaw, but a seesaw, you're kind of like always kind of like up or down. So in nature, there's no balance, there's harmony. Because sometimes we're a little bit more up, sometimes we're a little bit more down. We kind of seesaw through life like that. So that's how it explains that part.
So helpful. And I learned about the scalloped tongue meant that your tongue was swelling, because I was just confused, because I have on this side some ridges on my tongue, and I was like, how did that appear? And then it totally made sense when someone explained to me that it was teeth marks, and that I needed to start working on my gut and reducing the inflammation. And I feel like this has been, we've been continuously coming back to this in some way, shape, or form. So I was curious for listeners if you could just give a few tips and tricks for them to start to reduce inflammation, or a few things that they can to help with their gut health.
Sure. I'm a big advocate for probiotics. I feel like probiotics are great. We should all take them. We have all that friendly bacteria in our body, but of course, with stress, it does make that bacteria, die off and not function as well. So probiotics are my favorite. There's different forms of probiotics you can get if you're having like more severe issues like irritable bowel disease or Crohn's or things like that. I recommend the raw probiotics that you can buy like in the refrigerated section of like any health food store or place like that. If it's just more like, on a day-to-day basis, some people can remember that they do have like one daily um, probiotic that can be used. I like to work a lot with Garden of Life. It's accessible to everyone, and they have like great selection of probiotics. They even have one for like men's health, and they have one for women's health. It's more for like vaginal care. You'll be having any of those issues there, like bacterial vaginosis or yeast, all that is imbalance of the microbiome in the vagina. So that is important to keep that healthy. So that one will help better as well. So probiotics are my favorite for that. I also believe in doing, like fasting. I like intermittent fasting for some people that have a lot of inflammation. I feel like in the United States, especially, we don't have everything's in abundance. So we do everything like hardcore, and we do so much of it and take in so much of it. So I feel like intermittent fasting is something that's really nice for people to start doing. Fasting is really good for your body because it allows your body to just be in its natural state without any stimulation. Intermittent fasting is great, but I would suggest going slowly, like maybe just trying 1 or 2 days a week until you start feeling better with it. Like maybe doing like just a few hours of eating. There's different ways of doing that. Something that you will need to do, especially individually, custom to the person, because everyone has different ways of how they're feeling, like blood sugar levels, etc. I would also recommend juicing. I really love juicing a lot. Dark leafy greens juice are always great. Doing juices that are specifically for reducing inflammation are great. And then, of course, reducing sugar, having even if you can do a like twice a year, have a cleanse that you can do according to the changes in season. Like for example, spring and fall are the best times to do a cleanse because that's when we start shifting from the foods that we're eating. We were eating in the winter, it changes to a lighter foods for the spring and summer. Those are the best 2 days. And doing a cleanse doesn't have to be intense. We don't have to do 5 to 7 to 10 days. Even if you just start doing a 2 day cleanse, like where you hydrate well with like good filtered water, and then you juice and you do something like a cleanse like that, starting with 2 days. Even if you just start one day is great, and then you can build up 2 days, 3 days, and then as time goes by, you add in more time. But to me, that's always been the best. I feel like cleansing is something that's really important to our body. It gives our liver a break because our liver gets taxed on so much by all the good stuff like the ice cream and the fried foods and the drinking. And it's good to give it a break. The liver basically is our filter system of our body. So it gets overwhelmed as well. And that also includes like, stop taking supplements for like those 2, 3 days that you do a cleanse. Just really let your body go back to its basic form of being. The body likes to adapt to a lot of things. So basically, if you start giving it something that it doesn't like it takes on a daily basis, it'll be like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore because this pill is making me do that. So let me just go focus on repairing that knee pain that you have instead of having to help you with the digestion part. So that's one thing we have to remember about our mind. It's very adaptable, and even just be like, you have to push it to remind it, okay, we need to get to for you to go back to doing this job of like digestion. So I think those are like the basic things that I like to recommend a lot, water, and also, what reduces inflammation. I'm sure we've all heard this part. Warm water in the morning. If you can put lemon in it, great. If not, if you don't like it with the lemon, just starting your day with warm water helps to start the digestion well. And just by doing that, you'll start reducing inflammation because you'll start having better bowel movements, which means the toxins will start coming out of the body. And if you want to add a little lemon, great. But that would be the main thing that I usually do personally myself.
I think
And ginger. Yeah, ginger. There you go. Ginger tea. I'm all about the ginger tea. Like I juice I have one of those mastication, like juicers. So I'll juice like about 2 lemons. I like organic lemons because when you do it in the mastication like one, like you're squeezing the zest out of it. You want to make sure there's no chemicals in it. So organic lemons are better. And some ginger. I just put them all together and I make a juice, like really concentrated, and then I just kind of will pour a little bit of it and just make a tea throughout the day, drink it throughout the tea, drink it throughout the day. The body likes warmth, especially the gut. It likes all that cleansing, and ginger really helps, especially during this time that we're all going to be getting, some colds are coming and flus are happening. It's a good way to prepare your body to boost your immune system, stronger gut, stronger everything.
Those are all great tips. And you did mention a little bit with the warmth, but something that I've learned a lot while going to acupuncture is how like the body doesn't like cold. And we know that because I have a cold allergy. But besides that, I know people think like ice cold glass of water when you wake up, it helps wake the body up, but really it's actually the warmth. So I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about why warm is actually better for the body than cold.
Sure. In Chinese medicine, we don't believe in ice because when Chinese medicine was, created, 3,000, 5,000 years, BC, there was no ice, right? So basically when it comes to digestion, so it'll be mainly like the spleen meridian. The spleen meridian in Chinese medicine has to do with transformation and transportation of nutrients. So another way, if you add something cold to the body has to warm it up and has to like churn it and like really process it in order for you to get the nutrients out of it, right? When it comes to food, if you eat warmer foods, it's almost like they're already pre-digested for your body, so it's easier to absorb the nutrients into it. Same thing with the water. Like we're not if you think if you look in nature, even if you were to drink water from a natural spring, it's not as cold as an ice water would be. It would just be a little bit colder, but adaptable, more adaptable to the body. When you, in the morning, your body's been asleep for a certain amount of time. So everything has been in homeostasis, right? It's been like in a very like calm state. Then you drink this water and your digestion is just like, what just happened, right? So what's going to happen is it's going to get like, it's going to create cramps sometimes when you drink cold water like that. It's going to create your system to go into shock. So it's going to make your digestion slow down when you start to actually eat something. So a lot of people love like all these like smoothies for breakfast, and they love like these, like cold things for breakfast. It's if you have a digestion that is slower, meaning that you don't have enough bowel movements, or you feel tired or fatigued and you just can't get function in the morning. If you were to switch over to a warmer food, for example, like oatmeal in the morning, something warm, or eggs, or toasted avocados, or you just starting off with like the warm water with lemon, will actually be able, your body will be able to digest all these things when you actually do consume them afterwards. And then drinking teas as well. So I think that will be a good thing. And in Chinese medicine, cold is just not something that we want. A lot of people tend to ice themselves after an injury. It's okay maybe the first hour or so, but it's not recommended afterwards. Cold tends to congeal things and make things not move. Warmth makes things circulate. So you'll get circulation of energy, circulation of blood, etc.
It's so helpful because when I first learned about the cold foods, I was drinking a smoothie every single day, and I had actually just finished a smoothie cleanse. So I was drinking for 10 days, 3 smoothies a day. So, and I was like, why am I more constipated than I was before? And it just didn't make
Mhm.
sense to me because the whole point of doing this cleanse was for detox and for bowel, obviously bowel movements are a part of detoxifying. And I was like, this didn't work for me. And that was literally the catalyst that led me to acupuncture, because I was like, this was supposed to help my body and it didn't. I need advice. And then the acupuncturist was like, oh yeah, cold foods and you, not happening. And it was really hard for me at first to get out of that smoothie in the morning routine because it is so quick, it's so convenient. It took me 3 minutes when all is said and done to throw things in a blender and blend it up. And so what I started doing until I found other breakfast foods that I like was like heating up the milk that I would put into my smoothie. And I would be like basically drinking like a hot smoothie. It it actually wasn't that bad. And sometimes I still do it when I'm in a pinch for time.
Mhm.
But that was one of the tricks that I had learned of that. And then, of course, ice cream was my dessert of choice. And so then I had to start to learn how to bake. And that's how I started to learn how to, make cookies and cakes and breads and stuff to like fuel that sweet tooth. So, for anyone listening who is like, wait, you're totally ruining my life, I promise you there are other ways. And if you really love your smoothies, just warm them up.
It's true, or have them once in a while, more like midday, or but it all depends. Like it also depends on where we live. Like if we were somewhere really hot, like where it was warm all the time, then once in a while is okay. But you have to go according to where you live and the seasons as well. And then this is another thing that people always like, oh, but I eat salads, and I'm like, I'm not losing weight. I'm like, well, here we go again, going back to the digestion and the cold. Your body sees the salad as something cold. So it needs to work it up. It needs to put all this energy to break it down, to try to get the nutrients from it. And that's where a lot of the fatigue comes from. And then what happens is it fluctuates your hormones. So your hormones get out of balance. So that's like, that's the worst, the misconception that people have about like eating salads are good for you. In other countries, we actually have our food first and then we have our salad after, because our salad is more for like roughage to get things going. Here in the US, they start backwards. They start with a salad first, which is already bringing cold into your stomach, and then you're starting off with cold water and then a salad, and then your meal. By the time your meal comes, your stomach's already exhausted from having to heat things up to just get that going. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, when I first learned it, it was the salads, and I used to eat salads literally every day. And then once I was told that, I stopped and I would switch to like chicken and rice, and I immediately felt less bloated. And I was like, wow, I'm eating more carbs, but feeling less bloated. There's probably something to this. Then I learned also how, like with sushi, why they serve you miso soup is because sushi is technically considered cold and miso soup is hot. So you're supposed to sip it while you're eating the cold food. So, like, if you do have salads or you do have cold food, like having like the warm in between helps to heat up your stomach, which is so fascinating.
Exactly.
I do want to kind of switch over into some chakra talk because I know you help do some chakra alignments with acupuncture. So I was wondering if you talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Yes, I actually, some time ago, before, all these chakra acupuncture seminars started in classes, I was working with one of my yoga instructor friends, and we would do retreats, and we would want to do like, we would talk a lot about like yin yoga and balancing the chakras and so on. And I was like, okay, well, let's get into this chakra thing. Like, I know we all know what chakra, well, at least I know what chakras are. Most people know what chakras are. And I was like, okay, how can acupuncture be linked with the chakras? And I was like, okay, this makes sense. So in acupuncture, we have certain points called the front move points. So those points will be like the points that will pertain to every organ, just like in the back, we have the back shoe points, which pertain to different organs, different meridians, right? When they say organs. So in the front, I was like, okay, so let's just see how this would go. So I was looking at like, the root, the solar, the sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, in the, sixth chakra, and then the crown, right? So in every point, there's actually an acupuncture point. I was like, okay, let's needle these points and see how this will come up, how this will actually work. So it actually started working really well. Years later, I was able to take a course on it, which was actually really fascinating. It helped to like link in like actually connect all of the thoughts that I had about how acupuncture can work with chakras and how it works in the spiritual sense. So esoteric acupuncture, it's not something that we really touch upon in school, but in actual China, esoteric acupuncture is something that's used very, very often. And even like astrological acupuncture, like they're able to like look at your birth chart and through your birth chart see like what illnesses you will get like in the future, like in your near future, and how to start treating you now as preventative so that you don't get those actual ailments, which I thought was like fascinating. So I'm in the process of learning more about all of this other forms of techniques. But now I have been reading a book and have been able to, with the pendulum, you're able to go through every chakra and then see which ones are imbalanced. And then they have a protocol that will help to balance those chakras out. So you will do the treatment in the front, and actually most of the points are along where the chakras are, and you would do like a front and back treatment. Then afterwards, you will see how the chakras are aligned afterwards, and then it actually at the end everything's all aligned and you feel great. I actually like a lot of those esoteric treatments. I think it's something that Melissa has enjoyed a lot as well. So a lot of it is connected to different points. Like there's called window points of a window of the sky points. Some of them are in the neck. It goes really, really in depth and how this works. It's a lot of like philosophical stuff about it. I could like probably talk about it forever, but it's like something really hard to explain to someone that hasn't gone to acupuncture school because there's a lot of theories of how it connects with the spirit and how it connects with the heart and how like the liver meridian has to do with like a spiritual aspect of it too in different meridians. So it's would be very difficult to explain actually as well. But I do like doing esoteric acupuncture and balancing the chakras. I feel like it's something that we all need nowadays. And so that makes something cool to try.
Yeah. And the chakras are something that I've just learned about in the last 2 years doing connecting the dots. Melissa was actually the first person to ever talk about the chakras with me when she was a guest last season. And after that, I've just been so interested, and I've had a theta healer tell me that my solar plexus chakra was really imbalanced, and that's what I had to work on. So I have a yellow journal that I've been journaling and doing things. I've been trying to incorporate more yellow crystals, as well as like singing more is one of the, at home tips to help bring balance back to your solar plexus, and a ton of different things. And I've always found it interesting. And I had no idea that this relationship between the chakras and acupuncture could exist. And so I think that that is just so cool that you're able to bring those two modalities together, because it's all interconnected, as you explained. And I'm sure it's way more interconnected than I could understand right now.
Exactly. Yeah. There's one thing that I can explain, and I feel like a lot of it is if you were to have an understanding of how the meridians look, and where they pass through the body, then it'll be easier to explain. But I can explain two meridians that are extra meridians. They're called the Ren, which is what we call the conception vessel. And that meridian starts at the perineum, which is like in your root chakra, and it starts from the top, from the bottom, and it goes all the way top, all along into the midline, and it finishes in the inside of our mouth. And then that is considering like in prana, like when you're tuning your when you're so it's interesting how all of these things are connected. Breath through yoga, acupuncture through mind and body and spirit. So the prana is when you inhale and you bring a breath in, that's when you're bringing your energy from your root chakra up into your palate. As most of us know that when we do meditation, we press our tongue to our palate. We're actually activating the Ren meridian, which is the conception vessel. Then there's another meridian that starts at the perineum as well, and it goes all the way up our spine, up until here. So when you take when you exhale and you take it, it's basically the connection of the two meridians meeting here. So it's the circle of life, which is the prana of life in the in yoga, in yoga ways. And it's nice how it's beautiful how like through acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine through the meridians, you can explain anything that happens in the body. There is an explanation for it, and that's the part that I find really fascinating. And that's the part that I like to explain, like when I have my patients and I treat them, I like to explain what I'm doing so that they can understand what's happening in their body, and they can actually be part of their healing as well. Like, I'm just here as a guide to give you the tools to show you how your body works, to become aware of your body, because a lot of us are unaware of how it functions completely. And through acupuncture, you start becoming aware. You start learning that your body gives you messages and signs when something is wrong. So at first it tells you, it whispers, right? And then you don't really listen. Then it starts telling you, and then you still don't listen. Then it screams at you. And then that's when you're like, what's going on? What happened? How did this happen? But your body's actually been telling you for the last 3 or 6 months that something's been wrong. So it's a good way of learning about your body. So it's connecting the mind, body, and spirit in that sense.
Yeah, no, honestly, I have to agree with that, because I think I've never learned more about my body and all the things that I've been dealing with than through acupuncture appointments. I remember going to my first appointment and I was like, I learned more in this hour session than I have sitting down with any other doctor's appointments, because I feel like you spend so much more time going through the acupuncture, like really getting to know all the different pieces. Whereas usually doctor's appointment, you're going in for one specific thing. And also, when you were making that connection of the meridians and the chakras, I kind of had an aha moment with that, with the breathing, but also like when we do Om, because every chakra has a sound, and like Om is supposed to be that sound that connects all the chakras. And when you do it, you feel that vibration along those meridian lines that you were saying. So I was silently humming to myself, and I was like, okay, yeah, it really is. You do feel it that entire way. So it really is fascinating how it all is connected here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why breath work is so important. A lot of us do a lot of the shallow breathing where we just breathe from here to here. We never use our diaphragm. So, the diaphragm, breathing is what really connects us, and even going lower. It's so helpful in like helping with like stress and anxiety, especially nowadays. A lot of us don't know how to breathe appropriately, or don't breathe enough. We'll take one breath and like say like 3 sentences, you know? So a lot of it, it's good to be aware of your breath. It's an important thing to do.
Yeah, even before teaching yoga, which is very fitting right now because I have a raspy voice. I always used to lose my voice, but when I went to vocal therapy, I had to learn to breathe differently because I was always a shallow breather in my chest. So I had to breathe into my diaphragm in order to have enough breath to project my voice and not strain it. And that's when I learned, oh crap, I really haven't been breathing the right way to even talk the right way. And that's been putting an extra strain on my vocal cords. And then when I got into yoga, learned how much more important it is for you.
I agree.
Have you guys seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes, all of them.
Actually, no, because I'm very uncultured, but I will watch it this weekend.
Okay, put it on your to-do list because when you were, sorry, this is the most random thought that I had, but it ties in, I promise. When you were saying that like everything connects back in traditional Chinese medicine, you can explain anything. It just reminded me of the dad in My Big Fat Greek Wedding when he's like, every word connects back to Greece. Give me a word in English and I can tell you how it originated in Greek. And I just was like, that's such a perfect way to talk about traditional Chinese medicine, though, because it's so true. Like every single time I've said, like going back to the tongue, and having the ridges on your tongue, no one okay, I don't want to say no one, but most people in today's society wouldn't be like, oh yeah, that means your tongue's swollen, which means you're probably having inflammation, which means there's probably something going on in your digestive system. And it's just crazy how you can take these little things, or having the lines on your nails and what that could mean. That has nothing to do with your nails, but it actually goes so much deeper and getting to the root cause. And that's my favorite part about acupuncture, is that I always feel like there's more questions being asked aside from just me coming in with the reason that I started going to acupuncture aside from digestion was having really bad cramps and PMS. And instead of just saying, okay, yeah, let's address those cramps, here's whatever supplement or medication or whatever, it's like, okay, but how is your blood flow? And that's how we found out that I had a blood stagnation or blood deficiency, and so many different things of going so much deeper than just like where your symptoms are showing up.
Yeah, this is definitely true. It's like we say in the beginning, we treat the symptoms because that's just like there's a saying in Chinese medicine, you know, everyone's like an onion. So you start peeling all the symptoms, right? All the layers off until you find in the root exactly what is it that caused that, you know, where did it stem from? That's what acupuncture actually does. You know, we find out why it's happening. And that's where we're able to, when we treat pain, we're not just treating pain at that moment. We're finding out why is that the reason that your body's not allowing you to heal. You know, why does it keep getting inflamed? You know, where is that coming from? Is it stress related? Are you not sleeping? Is it digestion? You know, is your cycle just not regulated, or are you bleeding too much? And then we're able to figure out that part. So when I treat people for pain, I treat their pain, but I also treat what I call their underlying constitution, which meaning like we all have a constitution of being. Like they say that when we are created with something called prenatal chi. So depending on your mother's health and your father's health, when you were created, you are given that energy, and you're giving an amount of it. So that's what we call the jing, and the essence is like that energy of that life force that was given to you. And that amount of energy is given to you throughout your life. Depending on how you live your life is how you use it up. You know, if you overwork and not sleep, or drink too much, or party too much, and don't take care of yourself, don't eat well, you just spending all this energy that can't be replenished. But what you can do is what you have left, you can like use it wisely. So through acupuncture, we teach you how to do that, how to take better care of your body, and by giving you the tools to do it, you know, how to do it.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely something that's helped me so much, and something I love about going to you, especially is all the other things that you put into it. So besides the herbs and it's the trigger points, it's the cupping, it's electrostim, it's all the things. So it's basically, like you said, customized to the person, and never realized how good I could feel until going to an acupuncture session. But I know we talked so much about acupuncture and how great it is, but I do want to switch over because I know that for you, plant medicine has been a huge part of your healing journey. And I know you serve Kambo, but you also kind of dabble in a few other plant medicines. So I was wondering if you can talk about some of those and how they've helped you on your healing journey.
Sure. I've been on my healing journey for quite some time now. I've been the last 20 years I've been studying with different forms of Amazonian medicine, like ayahuasca, mostly for about 20 years. And that really that all that healing started happening when I in my early 20s, right before I started acupuncture school, actually. And acupuncture, I can say really did change my life as well. It was all like a combination of things that all started for me around the same time. Ayahuasca helped a lot of healing a lot of deep trauma that I had. That we all have some trauma that happens in childhood. Everyone's trauma is different, but it can be processed almost similarly, right? And it helped to just really, really go deep inside of my being and go back to those moments, traumatic moments that I might have forgotten as an adult, that were kind of festering in my psyche for so long, that created like pain in my body, or created anxiety and created anger. It's beautiful because you sit in a ceremony, and you're about, your journey is about 6 to 8 hours sometimes. And it's really like goes deep into the body, where like it opens up the closet and all that skeletons fall out, and then you're just kind of things that you in your mind, you thought that you had healed, but then it just brings them out again, and it shows you in a different way of what it really is. So it's like it's almost like having like a past life regression, but when this life, like a regression in your life of where things were traumatic for you, and things that you may not even think, like somebody said something to you when you were a kid and hurt your feelings, and since then you've had like this weirdness towards people for some reason, as an example. And for me, it was beautiful. It showed me, showed me the trauma. It showed me how to heal it. It showed me how to forgive myself, how to forgive others. And it showed me like the beauty and the love that you get from nature, how connected we are completely with nature, how if we take care of nature, nature takes care of us, how we're not robots, we're emotional beings, we're mammals, we're meant to have touch, we're meant to have interaction, we're meant to heal, we're not meant to sit here and be victimized or be victims of our past. It's more of what you do with your present moment, from all of that, like all those experiences bring you to who you are today, right? So it's been a beautiful journey, and for me, it's something that I still sit with, often. I feel like as a medicine woman, and the work that I do interacting with so many people, I feel like a lot of my work is not only acupuncture and herbs, but it's also a lot of like, psychology behind it as well. A lot of like one-on-one therapy talk. And all my beautiful experiences of my life have been able to help me understand and be in those situations, so that I can help others in guiding them, and what better ways to see their life, give them a different perspective and a different angle. And ayahuasca has really done that for me in a beautiful way. I've been able to, be fortunate enough to go to Brazil and sit with different tribes, and the tribe that I work with now is the Yawanawa tribe. And their form of healing was so magical for me in the last 4 years. I've gone through a lot of big breakthrough in my life, where I'm understanding myself more now, and I know the things that I want in life and the things that I don't want. And it's helped me get into a path where I'm able to live my authentic life and be happy within my own skin, and also, be able to be sober and, not drink anymore. And something that was just holding me back for so long from, previous trauma, genetic stuff. that gets passed down, but not knowing to not be upset with that and not be angry with that anymore, because that was just what brought me to who I am now. And and I'm thankful to all that part. So I also do sit with peyote as well. And we always call like Aya's more like the grandmother and peyote is more like the grandfather. So teachers is more of seeing. It helped me integrate all those lessons into really understanding and seeing like the discipline part of it. Learning what do I do with all this knowledge? What do I do with all these feelings? It helped me integrate that part better. And then that brought me to Kambo, Kambo being a frog medicine that also comes from South America. And I've also studied that with the Yawanawa tribe. So it's a form of helping you detox your body because it's a deep liver cleanser. It is actually the process is for you to purge and to what we call get well, because you're not purging, you're releasing emotions and energy, but it helps you clean your liver by cleaning your bile out of your liver. And in Chinese medicine, the liver has to do with repressed emotions, anger, frustration, fear. So this is like, I love how it's all been connected throughout my whole life, how acupuncture, learning about the meridians, learning about this beautiful medicine, and having all these other modalities interact I feel like has really helped heal me as a whole person from many, many different things.
Thank you so much for sharing, all those pieces of your story, because I think it's really helpful for people that are either skeptical about plant medicine or just aren't sure if that would be something for them. I think you did a really amazing job of breaking down exactly how each of them has helped you on your journey and the ways that it does that. Because while you were talking about ayahuasca, a question that has come up for me a lot is, how is this going to help me differently than some other modalities? For example, I get muscle testing, which really does help me go back to those repressed memories that have gotten stuck
Hmm.
somewhere. And that's been one of those really big benefits of that, is it's things that I don't remember or don't think about because I was 3, 4, 5 years old. So in my conscious brain, I would never go back to these moments in time because they're just not even on my radar. But I really appreciated you then talking about that piece of knowing what to do with that. Because I feel like that's kind of where I am right now, is that I have all of this knowledge. I know my traumas. I know my triggers. I know what has gotten stuck. I've cleared it, but something in me like just doesn't feel like it's finite or like totally gone. Like I haven't totally accepted all of these things, even though I've been working really hard to identify them and journal about them and get muscle testing and NET on them. Something in there like still sticks. And so for me, now that we've had you and a couple other people on the podcast talking about it, I feel like it's just that like next step of moving forward. And you can correct me if that's totally off base, but that was kind of my internal monologue reflection from what you were saying.
No, totally. It's completely right. I mean, you're right. So you do all this healing, you go through all these things, your life completely unravels because you're praying for all this change and you want to change the person that you are because you're not happy with that part. And then you're like, what do I do with all this? Right. So that's basically what we call integration part. And the integration part, I actually do work a lot with integration and I use acupuncture for integration as well, and Reiki and other modalities too. And I feel like that's where we need the most guidance in because everything does become unraveled. You're reliving, things that you completely even forgot about. And then it creates this anxiety or this discomfort. So integration, I feel like it's very, very important to have that part. And a lot of it can be done through like talk therapy or like I do. I do it talk therapy, I do acupuncture, add in the Reiki part of it. It's also very calming. Or I sit with other forms of Amazonian like medicine, which is a combo, or I sit with, like I said, peyote and so on. But these medicines are not for everybody. You have to be very careful once again, please be careful who you sit with. You have to make sure that this person has knowledge of these medicines, knows how to hold the space, knows how to hold the container, that you're in a safe place. There's a lot of people that are serving all these medicines that have no experience with them, just sat once in the Amazon or, you know, in the jungle, and then they come back thinking that they can serve this medicine to people. And a lot of people have gotten sick or other things have happened. So, you know, just like everything, you know, research, be aware, find out where's the safest place to go. You know, ask people, you know, like you can always ask me. I don't mind getting emails about it if you need guidance on that. Just be aware of those things, just like everything. You know, do your homework on who you're gonna go and experience, have these beautiful experiences with.
Are
Just
there
like everything.
any, sorry, are there any specific questions you should ask a potential, I don't even, what would you call a person, a medicine woman?
Yeah, you can ask a medicine woman or a medicine man. Like, you know, you can always ask me. It's like the type of questions you want to know is like, you know, if you're interested in sitting with any form of medicine is, you know, if you're wanting to sit with Aya, you know, ayahuasca, like where can you go? You know, like where can you be referred to? There are different ayahuasca churches throughout the United States, where, you know, it's better, it's safe and legal in these places, so there's more like regulated more. So those places are a little better, but I always feel like when it comes to those things, it's just better to ask people that, you know, like I would know where to send you and guide you, you know, as some of these things are also illegal in the United States. So you just have to be really careful who you go to, asking questions. I also feel like when it's your time to sit with this form of medicine, it'll find you. How about that? You'll meet someone that'll be like, "Hey, I'm gonna be going here," and then you'll be like, "Oh, I've always wanted to try that." And then they'll be like, "Hey, do you want to go?" And then that's kind of how it'll go. So don't worry about that part. The medicine will find you when you're ready.
Yeah, no, and this is what I say, if I'm ever going to do it, it's going to be with you. Because I
Yes,
never would have
exactly.
considered it before, and then now just the way you've explained it and told me about it and all the healing it's done,
Hmm.
it seems like something that's so, so helpful, and not ready for that yet, but hopefully in the near future. Definitely.
Exactly. And yeah, and then see if it's even okay for you to sit. Sometimes people are on medication or have certain medical conditions where they can't. So there's always some sort of healing for everyone. If someone can't do these forms of warrior medicine that we call, because they are extreme and intense, and then there's lighter stuff. There's Reiki, there's flower essences, there's acupuncture, there's sound healing, you know, there's meditation, there's, you know, silent retreats. Sometimes people can't do medicine, and that's okay. So there is something for everyone in this world, which is great.
Yeah, no, definitely. And something I did want to also touch on, because I know you're big with it, is sweat lodges. I wanted to,
Yeah.
yes, can you talk about what sweat lodges are and how they've helped you?
Sure. So sweat lodges are basically in North America. So here, like the Native Americans have sweat lodges that are basically created as a dome, and they're created by with you know, pieces of wood, pieces like branches of oak tree that are then formed into a circular motion, a circular dome, and then they have like the door that opens to the east, the north, the south, and the west. So you want to honor all directions. Then they're covered with like blankets on top, and then there's a pit in the middle of fire, where they dig a pit, not a fire pit, but there's a fire directly across from it. And in that fire, they put a certain amount of stones. Some people use the lava stones because they retain more heat. So they're put in this fire, and prayers are being done, and offerings like tobacco and cedar are being given to it. So that once these stones are brought into the pit that is inside of the sweat lodge, it's able to create heat, and that creates a steam like heat that comes out. So there can be about 3 to 4 rounds. Basically, going inside of the sweat lodge is like going back to the womb of the Mother Earth. So when you go in there, women are on one side, men are on the other side. You go in there, you know, to release all that you don't want to hold anymore, any emotions, any traumas, any ailments. You leave that to Mother Earth, and then when you come back, it's like you're being reborn again without all of these, you know, traumas and emotions and ailments that you want to leave behind. So when you're in there, it gets very 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 warm, so they pour they'll pour certain teas on it. It can be like juniper tea or cider, not cider, but cedar tea or water, and that creates this steam. And in every round, you will pray for, you give thanks, you know, and then you also can pray for like the land that it's on. You pray for every direction, so east, west, north, south. And then there's like a round where you pray for yourself, and there's like another round where you pray for, you know, your loved ones, and you pray for the earth, and then you pray for like all of the existence from above as well. So basically, it's a lot of it is a prayer, and a lot of these medicines. And in there, you don't do any medicine; you're just in with the heat. But that itself is medicine, and what's being poured. But you don't take anything internally. The idea is to make the body uncomfortable. So in all of these healings and all the physical modalities is to make your body uncomfortable so that you're able to break the ego down, so that you can actually open up to be your authentic self. So it's a lot of, it's discomfort, but they always say, you know, if it's too hot, then you're just not praying hard enough. So you just got to pray harder. And prayer doesn't necessarily have to be a religious thing. You know, it doesn't have to be like a Catholic thing. It could just be like, you know, I'm thankful for the water that I drink today. I'm thankful for the food that I eat, and thankful for, you know, the home that I'm in. Something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a religious way, because it actually isn't religious, to be honest. It's more just being in touch with nature. Once again, you take care of nature, nature takes care of you.
That is
So that, yeah. Hmm.
that is so cool. I want to do one.
Yeah, I have a friend that does them, so let me know.
Okay.
We'll can do it together.
I'm gonna be hitting up Melissa to be like, all right, 2023, we gotta do ayahuasca, we gotta do a sweat lodge. Let's coordinate with Karen. Let's get it on the
Yeah,
book.
well, let's do it.
Oh yeah. I know listeners are probably wondering though, are saunas like baby micro sweat lodges, and can you get some of the same benefits, or are they like two totally completely different things?
The type of heat is different. So saunas depends on, like, are you like in a Turkish bathhouse? Are you in a Russian bathhouse? Are you in a Korean, spa? So like it's all different forms of heat. This particular heat is created from the stones that are brought in, and then because you're in an enclosed place on the earth, like on the dirt, it's a different form of healing because you're on the dirt. So you're already getting healing from the ions, the other transference of energy from you in the dirt. Also from like the steam that's being released. But it's a good way to start preparing to learn how to breathe in one, because it's all about the breath in there. So if you want to start learning how to prepare, yeah, sure, go to a sauna. Start learning how to be able to sit in the heat and learn how to push through that part of when you're breathing and your heart starts beating really fast. Take a few deep breaths, learn how to go through that part. That will help a lot once you're in a sweat lodge, because remember, once you're in a sweat lodge, it's completely dark. So if you're claustrophobic or have anxiety, that can come up a little bit as well. But you can actually be able to push through that in a sweat lodge. But it's all about the breath. So you see how all of these kind of like intertwine? Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, it definitely all connects. And I think it's interesting because I'm thinking about how people take cold showers and cold baths, but obviously in TCM, the cold is it's not great for you. But also the thing that it teaches you though is your breath control. And I think
Mm-hmm.
you have that common theme there. And what you were saying with the prayer, it sounds like it's just an intense gratitude practice as well. So regardless of the
Mm-hmm.
heat, you're getting that piece of gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And awareness of yourself, awareness of your body, how much you can push yourself. And learning that you can actually that you have control of your breathing, that you have control of your body, that you don't need to freak out like that. So it's a lot of mind over matter, and really like connecting with the whole thing, connecting the mind, body, and spirit.
Alrighty, well, I don't know, Kath, do you have any other questions for her? We could probably keep going for hours, but
I think most of mine are going to be offline logistics.
Yes.
But no, I totally enjoyed this entire conversation, and also wanted to move into our closing questions.
yeah, so we have 3 rapid fire questions that we ask every guest. So our first one is, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting their health journey today?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say, learn, be gentle to yourself. Be aware of what your body's signs and what it tells you, and hydrate for sure. But be connected with your body. Like listen to your body when it's giving you, when it's showing you signs that there's something wrong.
So helpful. Especially, I think a big barrier for people is just not knowing what's in their head or what's actually happening. And so for me, I felt like acupuncture, to go back to this, was a like low stakes way of me,
Hmm.
at least for me. It didn't feel like I was going to like a doctor to get a diagnosis, and that felt like so scary, but of just like, hey, like, I'm noticing that I'm having worse PMS than all of my friends. So I'm gonna go see what you have to say about it. And it just felt so much less scary to me, in a way that I could explain these like inner notions of like something is not right without having to be like, oh, I need to get a diagnosis and I need this to happen. It was just so, yeah, such a good segue for me to get help. And then it opened my mind to so much. So
Hmm.
love that piece of advice. Our next question is, what do you think the future of health looks like?
I feel like the future of health is going to be great. I have seen a lot of a bridge between Eastern and Western medicine, and I feel like that is really our future when we can have all of these modalities in hospitals and in institutions and in different places where a person can go to a healthcare facility and be provided all of these beautiful forms of healing, so that it's not like, like seen as like a as something holistic. It's medicine as well. It's actually, acupuncture and all these some other forms of medicine have been around before actual Western medicine was. That was the beginning of medicine. So for us to be able to go back, full circle.
Yes, I really hope so. And like
Hmm.
I was saying, like acupuncture, it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, if your PMS is a little bit worse than everyone else, it's validating. It's teaching you that like what you're feeling is true. Like it's basically saying you don't have to. Not everything is normal if you're feeling this way.
Exactly.
I think.
Pain is not normal. You're not
Mhm.
supposed to have pain. How about that?
Yeah.
Which is
Hmm.
what my doctor had told me when I told her about those symptoms. She's like, "Oh no, everyone has PMS. You're fine." And
Hmm.
that's why when I was saying it was like a low stakes, like I was afraid to go back to the doctor and be turned away, or for them to say, "Oh my gosh, like let's run all these tests." Like to me, traditional Chinese medicine is so gentle and kind and takes everything into account, and as Melissa just said, like validates you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They really hear you and understand you. All right. So our last question is, since this is connecting the dots, can you tell our listeners how they can connect with you or where they can follow you or have any of your services?
Sure. So I'm a very old school cat, technology wise, but you can connect with me through Instagram, acupranagram, and through email. I'm more of like a email, like one-on-one person. So that would be the best one. My email is acuprana@gmail.com.
And we'll link those in the show notes. Thank you, Karen, so much for being on. You did so well with explaining absolutely everything. And I feel like in the great manner of connecting the dots, connecting all of these pieces of information and health and really like bringing it back home to like to our ancestors and kind of everything is connected. And
Hmm.
so thank you.
Thank you. That was fun. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.